Much, Madam Free Asanga, for those welcome remarks and indeed for enlightening us on the reason why we are here and why it is important for us to have such discussions. It's now time for us to move into the crux of the matter, and that is the panel discussion on today's theme, enhancing young girls and women's access to education in Cameroon. It's a pleasure for me to introduce today's moderator, who is none other than Dr. Jean-Cédric Kwam, Deputy Director of Economic Affairs at the CAFU Policy Institute. Dr. Jean-Cédric Kwam, please, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Ansel. Mesdames, Messieurs, bonjour. Nous sommes très honorés de vous compter parmi nous ce matin dans le cadre de cette discussion, dont le thème est, permettez-moi de le rappeler en français, améliorer l'accès des jeunes filles et des femmes à une éducation de qualité au Cameroun. En termes d'introduction, j'aimerais souligner qu'en septembre 2015, les États membres des Nations Unies ont adopté, après 2 années de renégociation, 17 objectifs de développement durable à atteindre d'ici 2030, lesquels sont contenus dans l'agenda 2030. Ces objectifs visent notamment à éradiquer la pauvreté sous toutes ses formes et dans tous les pays, protéger la planète et garantir la prospérité pour tous. La mise en œuvre de ce programme mondial de développement durable fait appel à un engagement actif aussi bien des gouvernements que de l'ensemble des acteurs de la société civile, du secteur privé, à l'instar donc des entreprises, des collectivités, des associations, des chercheurs et bien d'autres. Cet engagement repose également sur une réponse adaptée en matière d'éducation. L'éducation est ainsi explicitement présentée comme un objectif autonome. C'est l'objectif 4 qui vise à assurer l'accès de tous à une éducation de qualité, sur un pied d'égalité, et promouvoir les possibilités d'apprentissage tout au long de la vie. Mais l'éducation s'intègre également à d'autres objectifs de développement durable. C'est le cas par exemple de l'objectif 5, qui vise à réaliser l'égalité des sexes et autonomiser toutes les femmes et les filles. L'une des cibles de cet objectif 5 de développement durable met en lumière la nécessité de renforcer les capacités des femmes en matière d'utilisation des technologies clés, en particulier l'informatique et les communications, de façon à promouvoir leur autonomisation. 7 années après l'adoption de l'agenda 2030, des inégalités d'accès à une éducation de qualité perdurent entre les hommes et les femmes. Au Cameroun, les données de 2017 de la Banque mondiale indiquent donc que le nombre de filles inscrites à l'école primaire en pourcentage de la population totale scolarisée était de 81%. Contre 97% chez les garçons. En 2019, ce taux était de 110% chez les filles et 125% chez les garçons. Vous convenez que des inégalités perdurent entre les filles et les garçons, alors que la population des filles, des femmes et la population des hommes en pourcentage de la population totale est égale. 50% de femmes et 50% d'hommes. En 2020, ce sont les données de la Banque mondiale. Les facteurs qui influencent l'accès et la rétention d'une fille à l'école demeurent assez complexes et dynamiques. Quels sont ces obstacles qui freinent l'accès et la rétention des filles à l'école au Cameroun? Quelles sont les opportunités d'un meilleur accès des filles à une éducation de qualité au Cameroun? Quelles sont les conséquences de la sous-scolarisation ou de la non-scolarisation des filles aujourd'hui au Cameroun? Quelles solutions pour améliorer l'accès des filles à une éducation de qualité au Cameroun? Pour en parler ce matin, nous avons 2 expertes de questions de genre qui ont été triées sur le volet. Permettez-moi tout d'abord de vous présenter Madame Moisé-Nicoline. Madame Moisé-Nicoline est experte en genre et développement, actuellement consultante auprès du groupe de la Banque mondiale. Elle est fondatrice et directrice générale de Pathway for Women Empowerment and Development, défenseur des droits de l'homme, certifié par le Service international pour les droits de l'homme. Madame Moisé est la première instructrice d'éducation à la paix certifiée au Cameroun par le groupe international des femmes pour la paix. Elle est affiliée à de nombreux réseaux professionnels et de plaidoyers internationaux. Elle est titulaire, entre autres, d'une maîtrise en genre et développement de l'Institute of Development Studies de l'Université de Sussex au Royaume-Uni, d'un master en droit de la propriété intellectuelle de l'Université Yaoundé de Assoa, ici au Cameroun, d'une maîtrise en propriété intellectuelle et affaires de l'African University de Mutari au Zimbabwe. Cette importante discussion, nous avons également le plaisir d'accueillir Madame Itonde Elliott. Madame Itonde Elliott est la fondatrice et directrice générale de Daya and Brut Africa, une organisation non gouvernementale dont la mission est d'équiper et d'autonomiser les jeunes femmes et mères célibataires par le biais du renforcement des capacités, de l'entrepreneuriat, de l'éducation et de la lutte contre la violence sexiste. Au cours des 11 dernières années, elle a travaillé dans 4 organisations non gouvernementales différentes au sein du département de l'égalité des sexes, de l'unité de... Merci beaucoup, Madame Itonde, d'être là. Nous vous souhaitons la bienvenue à cette discussion. Mesdames et messieurs, nous aurons 50 minutes de conversation avec nos panélistes. Suivra ensuite 20 minutes de questions-réponses qui viendront naturellement de vous. Les questions auxquelles nos panélistes apporteront des réponses précises pour répondre à vos préoccupations. Permettez-moi tout d'abord d'introduire cette première question relative aux obstacles à l'accès et à la rétention des jeunes filles à l'école au Cameroun. Comme je le disais tantôt en prélude, la population des femmes au Cameroun en pourcentage de la population totale est de 50%. Vous convenez que si les femmes représentent 50% de la population, il y a égalité en termes de nombre entre les hommes et les femmes. Mais le nombre de garçons inscrits à l'école dépasse d'environ 20 points de pourcentage le nombre de filles inscrites. Donc, il y a égalité de nombre entre les hommes et les femmes, mais les filles ne sont pas inscrites à l'école. Quels sont les obstacles qui freinent? Quels sont ces obstacles-là qui freinent l'accès des filles à l'école? Et même celles qui ont accès à l'école ne parviennent pas à terminer leur premier cycle primaire. Qu'est-ce qui empêche à nos jeunes filles, à nos sœurs de rester à l'école? Ça, c'est la première question qui est adressée à Madame Oisé. Madame Oisé, pour le cas du Cameroun, pourquoi les jeunes filles demeurent moins nombreuses que les garçons à être inscrites à l'école?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for having me. Before I go ahead to say why fewer girls than boys are enrolled and stay in school, I think it will be very important for us to emphasize here that education or access to education is guaranteed to all and sundry. Boys like girls, they have equal access to education by virtue of the different instruments and commitments that Cameroon has signed at the level of the United Nations, the African Union, and even the Constitution of Cameroon. If we go at the level of the United Nations, the CEO, Madame Asanga, mentioned already the oldest human rights document, which is the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. We have the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child, which specifies in its Article 28 that state parties recognize the rights of the children to education and also have an obligation to ensure that children achieve their highest level of education as their potentials do permit them. That is what concerns the child generally. When we come down to the specific case of the girl child that brings us here today, I will be citing some instruments like the CEDAW, the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against the Woman, which specifies in its Articles 2 and 10 that girls and women's rights to education is a central obligation of third parties under the Convention. Still at the level of the United Nations, we can be looking at other instruments like in times of crisis, women's in particular right to education is guaranteed. And here, if we look at the UN Security Council Resolution 1325 on women, peace and security, it emphasizes the responsibility of the state to try to keep the girl child in school, protect her, prevent her against gender and sexual violence during conflict. Then, if we come down at the level of the African Union, the first instrument that we'll be looking at will be the African Union Charter on the Rights and the Welfare of the Child, which is the African version of the CRC, the UN Convention on the Right of the Child, which also emphasizes in its article, in many of its articles, Article 1 precisely, the duty of the state to guarantee access to education for all children and to give every child the possibility to go to school to whatever level as their potentials do permit them. Within the framework of the African Union, we have the Maputo Protocol, which is the African Union Charter on the Rights of the Woman in Africa, which also specifies this duty to eliminate all forms of discrimination against women and to guarantee equal opportunity and access to education and training. Then in times of crisis, within the African context, we're looking at the Kampala Convention on the access and assistance of internally displaced persons, which equally guarantees the right of education for the girl child, even in times of crisis. Then when we come back to Cameroon, we'll be looking at the preamble of the Cameroon Constitution, which states in one of its paragraphs that the state shall guarantee the child's right to education. Primary education shall be compulsory and under the organization of the state. And again, in all of these conventions that I've mentioned, primary education is free. And we must also remember that Cameroon is a signatory of the Jointia Agreement on Access to Education for All. So when we look at all these documents, we are setting the stage to say that right to education for both boys and girls, is guaranteed at the universal level, at the continental level, at the national level. And when we come back to Cameroon again, we'll have some instruments like the decree of 2001 that made public education free at the primary level. We all know that since 2001, primary education in Cameroon is supposed to be free. Even though when we go into the nitty-gritties of the application, we'll see that it is not free, but then the laws are there. So now, to answer the question on the barriers to girls' child enrollment and retention in school, I will talk first and foremost of the laws notwithstanding, we have cultural barriers. Cameroon alone is made up of about 250 different ethnic groups. And those ethnic groups, they have different cultures. We have like the Muslim culture, for instance. A girl child is meant for marriage and as soon as possible. Those are some of the things that prevent the girl child from going to school. Cultural barriers are the number one barriers or obstacle to the girl child's enrollment and retention in school in Cameroon. Still under cultural barriers, we have the issue of the boy-child preference, the fallacy. The girl child is a man's property, and a property cannot beget property. She will grow up and get married to another family. So when we train her, we send her to school, we are wasting the resources of the family because she will subsequently take it to another family. Those are those ancient beliefs that have kept women away from school, both at the stage of the enrollment and then when we come to legal discriminations, because even though this law exists, there are still laws that discriminate against the girl child. For instance, in Cameroon, pregnant girls are not kept in school. Even though there is a circular, and when you look at all those conventions that I mentioned, both at the United Nations and at the African Union, they say that the states should take measures to keep even pregnant girls, maintain them in school to the extent that their ability with pregnancy permits them to go to be in school. Which means if a girl child is pregnant and can be in school until the day of her labor, normally she's supposed to be maintained and kept in school. But again, because of our cultural and some limitations and beliefs, when you ask, they will say when she is in school with pregnancy, she's not a good example for the others. Others can copy her and fall pregnant. Because of those, her right to education, she's deprived of her right to education once she is pregnant. Those are some of the issues that we raised. Mr. Moderator, you didn't tell me I can talk less. I can talk for Africa. When it comes to issues of women's rights, trust me, I can talk for Africa.
Okay,
so please tell me how many more minutes I have.
Thank you so
how
much.
Many minutes? Okay.
Thank you so much, Madame. Madame Itonde, Madame Boisier tout à l'heure vient d'énumérer un certain nombre d'obstacles qui empêchent, qui freinent l'accès des jeunes filles à l'éducation au Cameroun. Et le premier de ces obstacles-là est culturel, est lié à certaines pratiques, à coutumes et à certaines pratiques culturelles. Est-ce qu'au Cameroun, si on prend par exemple l'exemple du Nord Cameroun, les filles vont très vite décrocher à cause des mariages précoces. Voilà. Est-ce qu'au Cameroun aujourd'hui, étant donné que ces pratiques culturelles occupent la première position, est-ce que d'une région à une autre, il est possible aujourd'hui d'identifier chaque coutume ou alors pratique qui empêche aux jeunes filles d'aller à l'école ou alors de très vite décrocher?
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Sedgwick, Mr. Moderator. First, like Madam Mazi rightly said, we have cultural factors which actually play a great role in why girls enroll and do not stay in school. And we know about the far north where based on their tradition. Based on their tradition, we have a lot of cases of earlier marriages. And also, we could say in every tradition, most cultures have outgrown women staying at home and have encouraged most of their young girls to go to school and further their education. But there are also many things that still happen in the society that stand as obstacles. Let's take, for instance, marriage. Though we are talking about early marriages in some cultures as far north, but socially, if we look at the society nowadays, we'll see that there is a high marriage fever. Where you see young girls at the age of 18, 19, they have a boyfriend. After 2 weeks, they pack their little bags and they already move into the boy's house and they assume roles of the wife, and before you know it, they no longer go to school. They get married or they get pregnant while in school. After they give birth, few months or let's say a year, they feel like they're just too old, and before you know it, they have a second child and they are gone back. We also have, let's talk about the crisis that's happening in the North areas. Most families are trying to see how both parents and children can come together and have them go through education. So we are going to realize that most of our sisters and younger ones who are internally displaced are either doing businesses or working as maids in houses, have to sacrifice for years for their younger ones to go to school. And most often they have to push the boys. Why? Because we have the cultural belief that the man is the breadwinner. So the more you push the man further into education and further in his studies, the more there's a possibility of him getting a good job, the more there's a possibility of him coming back to take care of the family. So all of those things also play in addressing why women stay back or why we have girls who go to school and do not complete their education. We also have, I talked about early pregnancies and the marriage fever that we all have. Reason why we're also having the government that's telling us about I think, is it the International Day of the Family where there are free marriages? Those who have done come, we stay like for 10, 15 years. We go and we say, okay, take this marriage certificate. So most of those things account. And Ironically, I'm a single mother. I have a 16-year-old son. But ironically, it's funny to find out from 19 years already thinking of being in a man's house. So that's one of the greatest things, working with single mothers and working with young girls in the community. I have realized that once a man tells them that, okay, you can stay back at home and take care, you will go to school. And then we have young girls also who are being sent into homes to work as nannies. We have kids who are 12 years, 13 years, who are in people's homes. And the arrangement is, 2 years after that, I'm going to send you to school. But most often after that, what happens? Do they send them to school? No. Most often they tell them, okay, pick a trade. And then when she picks a trade, you start touching money. You think at your age, you're probably 18. You're thinking of going back to Form 3, Form 2 to start back. So those are some of the things that happen in our day-to-day life in the community that also affects.
Thank you so much, Madame Etonde. Quand nous entendons nos deux experts, il en découle que les jeunes filles sont considérées comme des ménagères. Pourquoi? Parce que leur place, on se dit que leur place est à la cuisine, elles doivent aller en mariage, elles sont les dispensatrices de soins, elles sont les épouses, elles doivent être mères le plus tôt possible. Et c'est pareil dans pratiquement toutes les régions du Cameroun. Et quand nous écoutons cela, nous sommes assez confus. Et la question qui nous vient à l'esprit est de savoir, tant que nous sommes dans un contexte d'autonomisation économique des femmes, Madame Boisé, est-ce que les femmes les jeunes filles ont donc aujourd'hui les mêmes chances que les garçons à accéder à un niveau d'études supérieures?
Thank you again, Mr. Moderator. We always bear in mind that there is a legal framework and the institutional framework that guarantees education for both boys and girls. But that notwithstanding, girls' education, we have like belabored enrollment, the obstacles in enrollment. We have not even touched on the obstacles with retention, because there are different obstacles, right? Enrollment, some never even get to be enrolled. Some manage to be enrolled and they end it somewhere along the line because of the challenges that they face. Some of the reasons why girls don't follow their educational dreams to reach like the higher education level like boys in Cameroon is issues. Now I'll talk about issues of retention. Girls are mostly not retained in school because of infrastructural barriers. We know our schools. I do go down to the schools. If all women, there is this saying that if all women menstruated on the same day, there will be an international menstruation day. Women will just stay at home because in offices, like in schools, women are not meant to be accommodated when they are under their periods. That is a period in a woman's life where you need to like clean up like 3-4 times a day, change like 3-4 times a day. We don't have disposals for sanitary towels in school. Our schools are not equipped with toilets for girls to clean up during their menstrual periods. And for that reason, most girls stay away from school during their menstruation. That's one of the reasons. Another reason is the education itself. The way the education, the school curriculum. Most often, it does not take into consideration the specificities of the girl child. It is just most often a general education. And there is also some subject, like the STEM subjects, the science, technical, engineering, and mathematics subjects, which, since time immemorial, have been considered the preserve of the boy child. And more today, the importance and the way the girl child excels in those STEM subjects has been demonstrated, but then they need some type of motivation to engage in them. That is what we lack in our context.
Thank you so much.
So some of like the reasons why girls don't go up to higher education, and the other panelists also already mentioned issues of forced marriages, child marriages,
yes,
and those harmful practices against the girl child, issues of
girls, gender-based violence in school. Girls are even harassed by their own teachers, raped by their teachers, and all those things.
Yes, madame. Thank you so much. Oui. À entendre madame Boisé, nous convenons que les filières scientifiques ne sont pas souvent très ouvertes aux jeunes filles. Et même celles qui y ont accès sont victimes de discrimination. Permettez-moi de vous présenter quelques statistiques du Bureau régional de l'Afrique de l'Ouest, de plan en 2012. En 2020, ce bureau, les enquêtes qui ont été menées stipulent qu'en 2020, une seule structure d'aide aux femmes, ce bureau a recensé 1111 cas de violence, dont 11 cas de viol, 1 cas d'agression sexuelle, 146 cas d'agression physique, 25 cas d'union forcée, 488 cas de jeunes filles ont été également empêchées d'aller à l'école ou alors d'exercer une activité génératrice de revenus et 438 cas de violence psychologique. Donc vous convenez que même celles qui ont accès à l'école, à l'éducation, une éducation de qualité, font face à certaines discriminations. Madame Etonde, est-ce qu'il faut redéfinir un modèle d'éducation pour que ces discriminations soient éradiquées? Pourquoi? Parce que les jeunes filles ont accès à certaines filières, mais dans cette filière-là, elles sont victimes de discrimination et de tout ce que nous venons d'énumérer. Est-ce qu'il faut redéfinir un nouveau modèle d'éducation pour éradiquer totalement les discriminations faites aux femmes, aux jeunes filles à l'école?
Thank you. Yes, do we have to come up with a new structure or modify a structure that we have in education that can accommodate more women in especially science, more women in STEM? We should, and it will start by starting to encourage women. We have a lot of stories of men who have excelled in STEM, who have excelled in science, but we barely have stories of women who are excelling in certain field of interest, and that's also because there's a very timid number of women that pursue. Let's take like for the AFCON. It was amazing to everybody to find out that there was one woman, the first woman to be free in March. And that was when many of us knew that there are women, even in fields of football, that are pursuing that dream, that desire to enter into fields of work like that. So what I think, how many of us have ever heard of female pilots? Sometimes we can go on LinkedIn, we can scroll and see one, but it is hardly ever thought of. If we had many more women who are into STEM, many more women who have pursued into field of expertise, which are dominated by men, even those few women whose story we do not know about, if many more girls were being shown pictures or being told stories of such women, it will encourage them not to shy away. I'm going to take from example, when I was in Form 4 and you had to choose between further maths and food and nutrition, we all went to further maths because it sounded like you were the most intelligent, you looked so brilliant if you were doing further maths. And then the teacher solved one equation. The following day we came to class, we were 12. Everybody had gone to home economics. Like, just give me the utensils and save my brain, all of that. But again, we also need to teach structural STEM programs in such a way that women can see how they can use these innovative, these ideas and implement into their day-to-day lives. Because STEM can help women to better know how to calculate their menstrual cycle. Those who are in business, they can better know how to use it in doing accountability or their finances, tracing and having good accountability accounting or auditing their finances and their business. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Madame Etonde. À ce stade de la discussion, nous pouvons retenir qu'il y a un certain nombre de barrières qu'on devrait renverser pour faciliter l'accès des jeunes filles à l'école. Ces barrières sont d'ordre culturel. Les femmes ne doivent pas, les jeunes filles ne doivent pas être des ménagères réduites au mariage. Elles doivent aller à l'école. Pourquoi? Parce qu'aujourd'hui, nous parlons de femmes autonomes financièrement et pour être autonome financièrement, il faut s'éduquer. Mais Madame Boisé, parmi les femmes les femmes sont certes éduquées, parce qu'il y a un certain nombre qui parviennent à atteindre un niveau conséquent, mais on constate toujours, parlant d'opportunités même d'améliorer l'accès des jeunes filles à l'école, on constate que les femmes et les jeunes filles et les jeunes garçons, les femmes et les hommes reçoivent la même éducation. Mais au niveau du salaire, il y a un problème. Qu'est-ce qu'il faut faire aujourd'hui pour réduire ces inégalités salariales-là. Pourquoi? Parce que quand bien même l'accès à l'éducation sera facilité, au niveau des salaires, il y aura un problème et ça va davantage décourager quelques-unes. Qu'est-ce qu'il faut faire aujourd'hui pour réduire ces inégalités salariales-là? Pourquoi? Parce que cela a un impact sur l'éducation dès la base.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I think this is an issue that the government of Cameroon is being asked to address. One of the issues that the Cameroon government is asked to address, the issue of salary disparity. We must also make a distinction here between civil servants and workers who are governed by the level code. Because when we go at the level of civil servant, workers who are governed by the general status of civil service, that distinction is not obvious. It's not there, believe me. It's studies that we have carried out. But when we go to the labor code, workers who are governed mostly by the private sector and contract worker, that is where this salary difference is very, salary gap, call it salary gap, is very wide. And it is just a form of legal discrimination. As I said it already, it is a form of legal discrimination because a man and a woman, they graduate from the same school. The girl is even the laureate, and they are employed in the same industry, and for whatever reason, because it is a patriarchal world, it is the world of men. Men are bold and they are daring. Women are secondary human beings. They deliver the same work, but they are paid different salaries. So it's just legal discrimination, and it is an issue that is being addressed by the Cameroon government now. When you look at like the provisions of Article 82 of the Labour Code, for instance, there is an issue. So I will consider them just those legal discriminations against women and really nothing else. It has nothing to do with proficiency. That's my take.
D'accord, merci beaucoup madame. Donc, en réduisant les inégalités salariales, on encouragerait le gouvernement ou alors le secteur privé même encouragerait un bon nombre de jeunes filles à demeurer à l'école, à rester à l'école. Pourquoi? Parce que sous d'autres cieux, peut-être pas au Cameroun, ce facteur est l'un des principaux facteurs qui décourage certaines femmes, jeunes filles à rester à l'école ou alors à poursuivre des études à un niveau assez élevé. Nous avons parlé tout à l'heure des études scientifiques et nous sommes dans une discussion. Il est important de relever un certain nombre d'opportunités pour les jeunes filles d'accéder à des études scientifiques. Pourquoi? Parce que nous sommes dans un contexte de Covid-19 et il faut davantage avoir accès à la technologie, avoir accès à certains outils pour faciliter le travail. Le monde du travail aujourd'hui a changé. Madame Etonde, quelles sont ces opportunités-là qu'ont les jeunes filles que peuvent avoir les jeunes filles à accéder à certaines filières scientifiques? Pourquoi? Parce qu'il faut parfois la volonté personnelle aussi. Voilà, c'est vrai qu'il y a un certain nombre de facteurs familiaux, des facteurs culturels, mais les jeunes filles peuvent également se lever pour dire moi je veux faire telle spécialité. Quelles sont ces opportunités-là que les jeunes filles peuvent avoir à leur actif en accédant à des filières scientifiques?
So looking at it, we could say women or girls who get into science or STEM education who grow up to be amazing web designers, because the world of web designers is dominated by men. Men understand algorithm, yes, but many more women in science and technology improves also on design. Women have creative tendency. Men are good with facts and figures. Women can blend both. So we have web designing, we have even in the medical field. Even in the medical field, we can have people, we have now database and statisticians, which are mostly fields which are dominated by men. And when we have more women who get into it, it still boils down to the fact that they do not only add to the GDP or development of the community of the nation, let me use the word nation, but also it can be refined to address women's need. So we are having women who can use web designing, we are having women who can use database and who can show us facts and figures of what the world of a woman looks like. If we're talking about menstruation, they can give us statistics, okay, this is what menstruation looks like, these are the ages that women go into. Women go into menopause. This is what women go through when they go through fibroids. So all of those things, we need more women instead to address more issues, not only globally, but also women-related issues.
Okay. Merci beaucoup, Madame. Was there quelque chose à ajouter, les opportunités qui s'offrent aux femmes, à nos jeunes filles, à nos jeunes sœurs, jeunes filles qui ont accès à la filière scientifique? Est-ce que vous pouvez énumérer quelques points? Parce qu'aujourd'hui, il faut les encourager à avoir accès aux filières scientifiques.
Thank you, Moderator. I think COVID-19 has proven again that the world will one day become remote. And becoming remote you need to master the information technology. And I cannot, I've lost count of the number of articles that are bought online since the outbreak of COVID-19 within Cameroon. You just go on Facebook and you see an article and they say, you click on the WhatsApp link and it sends you to the WhatsApp and it says, I saw this on Facebook. That is what the world is becoming today. So for women to be able to meet with the world as it is evolving, they need to be educated, not only educated, but laying emphasis on information technology courses. We have the African Union Free Trade Zone was launched in July 2021. And it has been going on. And most of it is going on online. So there is no way anybody, I think the world has grown past that age where our mothers used to just be ordinary buy and sell and make it. We are in the 21st century. And we need to encourage the girl child to go to school for her to be able to even lead her own self. Leadership comes with self. If you cannot lead your own self, if you cannot direct your own self effectively, you cannot talk of going out to lead a family or a population and all those things. We can no longer bypass education in those things. So the reasons why the girl child education remains a development multiplier. Okay. And we don't need to belabor that point again. If we center it around education being a development multiplier, then it says it's all. Girls need to go to school, not only go to school to learn history and geography, yes, but lay emphasis on the STEM subjects.
Okay, thank you so much, Madame. Permettez-moi, chers panélistes et chers participants, de vous présenter encore les résultats d'une enquête qui a été réalisée par l'Institut national de la statistique en 2012. Cette enquête a révélé que les hommes sont dans l'ensemble mieux rémunérés que les femmes. Nous l'avons parlé tout à l'heure. Dans le secteur formel, les hommes ayant un niveau d'études secondaires et supérieurs gagnent un salaire 1,3 fois et demi supérieur à celui des femmes. Alors que chez les non scolarisés, le salaire des hommes est 4 fois supérieur à celui des femmes. Dans le secteur informel, les hommes touchent un salaire qui est de 2 à 2,3 fois supérieur à celui des femmes, quel que soit le niveau d'instruction. Les données sur l'égalité des sexes au Cameroun publiées par le Bureau de coordination des affaires humanitaires de l'ONU en 2019 indiquaient également que les femmes consacrent en moyenne 8,2 heures de plus par semaine que les hommes aux travaux domestiques non rémunérés. Vous voyez, il y a de nombreuses conséquences, de nombreuses inégalités qui perdurent. Et du coup, nous sommes en train de nous poser la question de savoir, est-ce qu'à l'horizon 2030, nous l'avons évoqué tout à l'heure, les femmes seront financièrement autonomes. L'objectif de développement sain défini par les Nations Unies est spécifiquement dédié à cette autonomisation des femmes et des filles. Et l'une des cibles renvoie à un meilleur accès des femmes à des postes de direction. Si des inégalités perdurent, est-ce que les femmes seront encouragées à compétir ou alors à vouloir accéder à ces postes de direction-là? Est-ce que vous pensez qu'à l'horizon 2030, le Cameroun, Madame Etoundé, pourra atteindre cet objectif 5?
To an extent, yes. To an extent, yes, if we have many more women who enter into the labor force, if we take into consideration that women and men are being paid equally, we take into consideration that entry into a job is easier, because there are times that women go for jobs and they say they can't take you because you're either married or you're having kids, and it's probably a job that would entail you traveling every now and then, and they're thinking of what your husband is going to say. That also stands as a restriction. But can we attain 2030 if women are better paid, if there is smooth entry? Women are given equal opportunity to acquire, to apply jobs without tying them down or without holding them down because they are married, because of their marital status. Yes, we can attain.
Ok. Madame Ouazé, est-ce qu'une femme peut être financièrement autonome sans fréquenter, sans aller à l'école?
Mr. Moderator, please, do you give me permission to come back to whether Cameroon can
Yes, you can go ahead. After you can answer
please. I want to add to what has been said already, that SDG 5, first and foremost, is not a standalone SDG. All the SDGs, all the 17 SDGs are supposed to be achieved in some sort of collaboration. So when we look at the prevailing situation in Cameroon, a cascading crisis, which already prevent access to justice, peace and strong institutions, SDG 16, we look at the impact of those crises on the education of the woman. We already see that thinking that Cameroon can achieve SDG 5 by 2030 is far-fetched. If we come back to the country itself, even before the outbreak of the crisis, Cameroon had developed an emergence plan for 2035, which means the country itself had evaluated itself and seen that achieving sustainable development goals by 2030 will not be possible for it, that without being pessimistic. So when we take this and many other, we know because of the crisis, the Northwest, the Southwest region, and the Far North region were declared by the Prime Minister in 2020 economic disaster zones, which by virtue of Article 121 of the tax code are zones that have become impeded by natural or man-made disaster for a certain period of time where economic activities cannot longer take place. When we look at that, we already see that the feminization of poverty is re-ushering itself into those regions, and women are bearing the brunt of those crises. COVID-19 came in, and we can just begin to name them to see why it would be almost impossible for us to achieve SDG 5 by 2030. And not only has it impeded the achievement, it has always also wiped out the milestones that have been achieved. I think I'm not being pessimistic if I say it has wiped out the milestones. How many women were in the informal sector who today they are jobless, they have become mobile, they have become internally displaced, and so on, and you name them. So the reasons are many, Mr. Moderator. We can go on and on, go on naming them, justifying why we think Cameroon cannot, except by a stroke of magic, we can achieve SDGs by 2030. You asked a question, what was the question?
Oui, la question était de savoir est-ce qu'une femme peut être financièrement autonome sans être éduquée ou alors sans instruction? Parce que nous avons évoqué tout à l'heure le secteur informel et beaucoup de femmes qui ne sont pas, il y a beaucoup de femmes qui n'ont pas fait de longues études, mais qui ont excellé dans le secteur informel. La question donc que nous posons ce matin est de savoir est-ce que pour être financièrement autonome, il faut toujours ou bien absolument avoir accès à une éducation de qualité?
Moi, je veux dire que pas nécessairement, mais vu la lutte de l'évolution du monde et pour les raisons que nous avons citées plus tôt, il devient de plus en plus difficile pour une femme ou n'importe qui de vraiment réussir en en économie sans une certaine formation formelle. Je citais tout à l'heure les e-commerce, le commerce en ligne. Ça devient de plus en plus à la mode à cause du Covid, les crises qui sont un peu partout, les crises du Noso, les crises du Boko Haram, les crises Arab Shoa, Moussougon et tout cela. Ça fait que le e-commerce devient de plus en plus à la mode. So I think it might not be financial autonomy or independence of a woman. Education might not be a condition sine qua non, but being sustainable. I want to lay emphasis on the issue of sustainability because it reaches a point where you will not grow. We saw our old businessmen who told us they started with selling granite and all whatnot, but when the business grew to a certain level, I'll cite a very fun example. When the wife of Pa Amu Mezam, the transporter, he had a wife which he called his computer. And when that wife died, Pa said, my computer don't crash. Yeah, because business has reached a place where Pa could not go on without computerizing things, without following up things, without having a financial statement to know whether you are working at a loss or at a gain. So business without education will prosper to a certain level, but it will not grow above a certain level and will not be sustainable without education. That's my take.
Okay, thank you so much. Madame Etonde, nous allons revenir un tout petit peu sur les conséquences de la non-scolarisation ou alors la sous-scolarisation des filles. Pourquoi? Parce que si nous avons des associations de femmes qui sont des ambassadrices, qui vont porter haut la voix de ce que nous sommes en train de dire aujourd'hui, quelles sont les conséquences pour les familles, les parents à ne pas envoyer leurs enfants à l'école ou alors à retirer leurs enfants de l'école? Nous avons évoqué tout à l'heure l'autonomisation économique, c'est-à-dire nous avons vu qu'en envoyant l'enfant à l'école, il y a de très très fortes chances qu'elle soit financièrement autonome. Mais quelles sont les autres conséquences de la non-scolarisation ou la sous-scolarisation des jeunes filles pour que les ambassadrices qui sont ici la portent ou la voix de l'homme?
So one of the disadvantages for young girls not going to school is, we always say, you empower a girl child, you empower a nation. When you do not empower a girl child educational-wise, we have deficits in communities, we have deficits in families, we have deficits in society. What do I mean? That a woman, at the end of the day, with a culture, stays at home and watches over the kids. She's the person who goes through their homework. So when a lady is not educated, she stays at home, she does not know how to read and write. The children go to school, they're probably weak. They come back from school and they have homework. And the man is out hustling to bring food in the house. Who stays in the house and who educates, who helps with the children's homework? It's the mother. If she's not educated, she cannot be able to empower that child at a certain level. We also talk about livelihood in the family jobs. When the girls are not educated, in a home where you have 5 daughters and none of them are educated, they're going to spend time either just getting into early marriages or find themselves in unsafe jobs or even prostituting because they do not have marketable skills. They do not have marketable skills out there. So that also helps, that also puts not only her into abject poverty, but the family as well. It also, we have fewer role models for women when women are not educated. The more women don't go to school, we have the younger generations who come and we have older generations of women who are educated. What is the mentorship they can give them? What is the advice they can give them? How do they show them the path to grow in their career, in their businesses? So those are some of the things that those are some of the disadvantages that we experience in a day-to-day community when we do not have women go to school. Health-wise, when she's not educated, she has 5 kids, she does not know how to calculate her menstrual cycle. She will just tell you that if 3 Saturdays pass, one Saturday you must see her menses. If it doesn't come, either the girl is into depression that she's pregnant or she's having a medical issue. So those are the things that happen in the lives of an everyday woman, that when we fail to educate a girl's child, we might look at the economy, how it affects, but let's come back and look at our community, the state at which it leaves our community when women are not educated.
Thank you so much, Madam Etonde. Dear participant, in the next 10 minutes, I will give the floor to you so that you can ask some questions to our expert or our panelists. Now, I want to give them the floor so that they can propose some policy recommendations for improving access to quality education for girls and women in Cameroon. I will start with Mademoiselle. Mademoiselle, please, what are some of those recommendations that you can propose to the government, women association, ministry, I don't know, private sector, to improve women and girls' access to education, quality education in Cameroon?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I have a few recommendations to make, but before I go to the recommendation, I would like to add that the consequences of low education of a girl, child, or woman will not limit to economic consequences. It will go be above economic consequences. As we said earlier, that she can manage her business to a certain extent, but it will not be sustainable if she's not educated. Also, look, I am not disparaging uneducated women. My mother is an illiterate, but she gave birth to 11 of us and she brought us up successfully. That was in those days when we had hospitals. We had mission hospital. Reverend sisters had the patience to read and tell you, Mama, when you go for house, one for morning time, one for evening. We don't have people who have such patience today. You should be able, you should be the owner of your own life. To even go to the hospital, go even to the pharmacy, they sell medications to you, be able to check if the expiring date of those medications. You can just eliminate your entire family by not being able to check the expiring date of the medication, or if this is the medication that was prescribed by the doctor. And who has the patience to do that? Is the woman. Who has the patience to lead a human-centered community, family? Is the woman. This folklore, how do they call it? John Menang used to sing that men, you are the head of the family, but women lead the homes. Women run the homes. If a woman is unable to run the home, there is no home, society, and the community at large. So for her own well-being, it will be good for her to have a certain degree of education so that she can take care of her family, take care of the community and the society. We are talking, the percentage of women in appointed positions in Cameroon is still very low. But somebody should tell me one illiterate woman who is appointed to any ministry in Cameroon. Somebody should tell me one woman who is elected to the parliament or to, that is to the National Assembly or to the Senate. And that is where the decision, the political decision is being taken. So you need a certain degree of education. Cameroon has just operationalized a decentralization law as it is contained in the 1996 law with the creation of the regional council, the pioneer city mayors, adding to the 360 municipal councils that we have. And we have all those things. Who are leading them? Who are advocating? Who are the people advocating for gender issues to be mainstream in these new institutions? People who know that women have rights that are contained in those documents that we just cited here. So, under education is the 21st century is too, like, it should not be encouraged. So for the recommendations, I would say, Mr. Moderator, thank you for giving me the opportunity to run my mouth again. For the recommendation, I would say Cameroon, we are not an island. And in development studies, there is this thing that they call best practices. There are best practices that have been applied successfully in some countries around the world that I propose Cameroon should copy from them. I will take a UNESCO study in Latin America and the Caribbean islands in 2017 and 2018, where they found out that both girls and boys and girls were enrolled in school equally, but that's why at the beginning I said we should differentiate between enrollment and retention.
Yes.
But at a certain stage, girls were like missing.
Yes.
And when it went higher, and then when it went to STEM subjects, they were nowhere to be found. So what are some of the best practices that have been used by this country? Motivation for the girl child. For instance, secondary education in Cameroon is not yet free, but there could be a government scholarship to encourage girls who want to do the science subjects. And we have girls who are intelligent who can do the science subject. We have business people in Cameroon who could encourage. I don't know if we look around the world and we see the things that business people do in other countries. I used to ask myself, why are Cameroonians orphans in all the dimensions? People could opt and offer scholarships to girls so that they can be encouraged to embrace the STEM subject. Those are some best practices. We can also redesign the school curriculum. What are the things that girls are mostly interested in? Because we just have a general school curriculum, right? But the needs of the educational, just like the well-being needs, the social needs, the economic needs of the boys and the girls, they differ. The educational needs of men and boys and girls, they differ somewhere along the line. If we could redesign the curriculum to encourage those subjects that are designed to fit the needs of the girl child, that can also be an advantage. Then we can also, another recommendation is Cameroon has signed through the ministry, through the UN Women, there is Second Chance Education, a program, a universal program that is called Second Chance Education, that is implemented in Cameroon. Those are some of the things that should be encouraged. Second Chance Education is actually giving the girl child who has been out of school due to pregnancy or the ongoing crisis, as we know them, gives them the opportunity to go back to school. For instance, there is also another project in Cameroon that is championed by UNFPA. They call it Education Plus. It was also launched in Cameroon last year. Those are the different projects that Cameroon should lay emphasis on so that they give the girl child an opportunity to go back to school after all the crisis and the school dropout and all whatnot has happened to the girl child. And of course, there is also the legislation. The Cameroon legislation should be reviewed to encourage, as the international instruments say, gradually encourage free education at the secondary and the higher level for the girl child, among other things, and I hope my co-panelists will.
Yes, thank you so much, madame. Permettez-moi de résumer en français ce que madame Oisé a dit. Il faut encourager et faciliter l'accès des jeunes filles aux filières scientifiques. Nous l'avons discuté tout au long de cet événement. Il faut également réadapter le modèle éducatif pour qu'il tienne compte de la vulnérabilité des jeunes filles. Malheureusement, quelques-unes attrapent des grossesses, mais il faut qu'elles rentrent à l'école. Elles ne doivent pas rester à la maison. Mais le modèle éducatif doit tenir compte de cette vulnérabilité-là, de cet incident-là, et permettre aux jeunes filles de ne pas décrocher, de ne pas rester à la maison, mais de rentrer à l'école. Il y a déjà l'école primaire, je crois que l'école primaire est gratuite, mais cela doit s'étendre au niveau secondaire et au niveau supérieur. Voilà trois principales recommandations que Madame Oisé propose pour faciliter l'accès des jeunes filles à l'éducation. Madame Etonde, some policy recommendations to improve women access and girls' access to quality education in Cameroon.
Yeah, I'm going to add a few to what she said. She already talked about adult literacy. We also could talk about going into the field, sensitizing more parents about the importance of education. And we know women have a lot of women's social groups, their little daunting that they have. If they can even incorporate that in one session, if they are holding meetings, say twice a month, once a month they could sacrifice an hour, probably for the women who are there who are not educated, who do not know how to read and write, teach them just the basics to read and write. They can also incorporate such trainings, such literacy programs, even for their kids. And also going into rural communities, because rural communities face this a lot, going into rural communities and carrying out a monitoring and evaluation system of how schools work. There are schools here in Cameroon that ends in class 4. working at Haute Sanaka Donkwa, a computer, I was surprised to find out that the classes they end at class 4. So that doesn't play positively on women and on the girl child in school. So those are some of the things we need to rectify more.
Thank you so much, madame. Donc, d'après madame Eton, il faut sensibiliser les parents. Pourquoi? Parce que les parents ont naturellement un rôle à jouer dans l'éducation des jeunes filles. Je vais vous prendre une petite anecdote. Et les hommes qui sont dans la salle vont convenir avec moi. Quand vous venez avec votre salaire à la fin du mois et que votre femme vient avec son salaire à la fin du mois, vous êtes content. Pourquoi? Parce que les charges, elles supportent, l'argent va permettre de supporter un certain nombre de charges. Pour permettre à votre fille d'être aussi équilibrée dans son foyer demain, de ne pas échapper à certaines difficultés dans son foyer, il faut davantage l'envoyer à l'école. Pourquoi? Parce que le parent dont tu bénéficies du salaire de la femme a aussi envoyé sa fille à l'école. Donc nous les parents doivent encourager leurs enfants à aller à l'école. Et pour les hommes dont les femmes ont eu accès aux filières scientifiques comme ma femme biologiste, c'est très facile de résoudre un certain nombre de problèmes qui sont liés aux femmes. Pourquoi? Parce qu'elle a un curriculum scientifique. Il faut davantage encourager les femmes à avoir accès aux filières scientifiques. Il ne faut pas également, d'après Mme Etonde, oublier les zones rurales. Au Cameroun, les femmes constituent 51,3% des femmes sont en milieu rural. Et elles sont très pauvres. Les statistiques montrent que la pauvreté est accentuée en milieu rural et c'est tout naturel. Donc il faut avoir un programme spécial pour les femmes rurales. Le modèle éducatif que nous recommandons d'être revu ce matin doit également tenir compte de la vulnérabilité des femmes rurales ou alors de la précarité en milieu rural. Mesdames et messieurs, voilà quelques recommandations que nos experts ont proposées ce matin. Nous allons tenir compte de cela dans le cadre d'un article scientifique que nous allons rédiger à cet effet. Nous allons tenir compte de ces recommandations-là, mais nous voulons aussi vous écouter. La phase des questions, ouvertes, les questions des participants. Nos panélistes vont apporter quelques éléments de réponse à vos préoccupations. Nous allons recueillir 2-3 questions et permettre à nos panélistes de répondre à ces questions avant que nous prenions la seconde phase. S'il vous plaît, un micro dans la salle et ceux qui ont des questions, vous pouvez juste lever votre main. Je ne sais pas s'il faut commencer par les hommes. C'est mieux de commencer par les femmes. Oui. Yes, madame.
Merci, monsieur le modérateur. Bonjour à tout le monde, bonjour aux panélistes. Je suis Choumi Laurel, membre de la Women Peace Mediation and Conflict Prevention. Ma question, j'ai vu récemment un documentaire où il fallait faire un choix, les hommes et les femmes. Il y avait des filières scientifiques, les ingénieries, pilotes, et nurserie, infirmerie. Mais les femmes dans ce documentaire étaient plus penchées vers les filières littéraires, infirmerie, en fait les métiers moins lourds, on va le dire. Je voulais savoir qu'est-ce qui peut expliquer ce choix, cette tendance que les femmes ont à aller vers ces filières peut-être moins dures, je ne sais pas trop. Ou alors est-ce que ce n'est pas une prédisposition naturelle que la femme a? Par exemple, on sait que la femme est plus douce, la femme est plus pacifique. Qu'est-ce qui peut expliquer réellement cette tendance? Merci.
Madam Wazir, please grab the floor. Excuse me. We can also take another, yes, you can take 2 other questions so that after our panel we give some response. Yes.
Thank you very much. Good morning to everyone. I'm Romeo Kane of CRTV. Stood with partners. We've been following up the activities here. Now, I want to first of all appreciate the topic, especially on the girl child, because it's something very current. But let me take it first, this dimension. We're talking mostly of the girl child, which is very good. Now, there is this policy, it's an observation that you see around the streets, especially in Yaoundé. You will notice that mostly the girl children and even the boys, sometimes they are the ones on the streets. Now, do we still say here that the boys are favored or the girls are favored? I want to know that because it becomes recurrent. We find many of them leaving schools, many of them sent to the streets by their parents. I want to know what role does the family in general supposed to play so that we do not have this is a phenomenon. But now, getting back to the tradition, we're talking about the tradition. It still comes to my imagination. Do our families also have a particular role to play? Talking about successorship, because it's something many of us always think that goes only to the men. And then sometimes we have the impact that the women are not supposed to be given that role. Thank you.
Thank you so much. One other question, please, from the audience. Yes, you have the floor.
Bonjour à tous. Je suis Untitled Chapter, chargé de programme de l'association Women for Peace, Mediation and Conflict Prevention et enseignant assistant à l'université de WERC. Je voudrais plutôt donner une contribution. Les défis de la déperdition scolaire des filles rentrent pour ma part aussi dans le grand clivage de la mondialisation. Parce qu'on est resté adossé aux langues culturelles, aux contraintes qui peuvent émerger de nos traditions. Mais l'école actuellement est confrontée aux défis de la mondialisation. Je prendrai pour cas de référence les problématiques de la consommation des stupéfiants, de l'alcool, et vous avez tous ici connaissance de ce qui se passe dans l'école des sextés. Donc, les habitudes, les comportements et les revirements qui sont à l'origine de cette manière de faire dans nos sociétés sont certaines aussi à l'origine des déperditions scolaires chez les filles. Parce qu'une jeune fille qui se livre à l'addiction de drogue, à la consommation d'alcool, aura certainement, comme le jeune garçon, des effets de se retrouver dans la rue, comme évoquait le panéliste tout à l'heure. L'autre problème majeur qui peut être évalué comme une contrainte à l'accès à l'éducation au Cameroun, c'est comme la carte scolaire. La carte scolaire au Cameroun est très mal maîtrisée. L'État du Cameroun, en juillet 2020, a initié, mettre sur pied une plateforme qui regrouperait l'information au niveau primaire, secondaire et au niveau universitaire. Parce que la maîtrise de la carte scolaire est un levier de facilitation d'accès à l'éducation. Donc, ce problème-là, il doit être relevé aussi. Sur les opportunités ou les leviers, je pense que Mme Etonde a éclairé la question en parlant de l'éducation des familles. Parce que l'éducation n'est pas seulement à l'école. La famille étant la première instance socialisatrice de l'individu, il est commun de penser que pour nous qui sommes des organisations de la société, prenons vraiment cette mission-là comme une mission très importante. Parce qu'elle est fêtière. Et l'éducation étant le point d'ancrage de l'élévation d'une société. Si nous ne travaillons pas sur l'éducation, notre société est bien.
Merci beaucoup, monsieur. Je pense que c'était plus une contribution qu'une question.
C'était une contribution.
Merci, c'est bon, nous avons pris note. Je donne la parole à Madame after this. Please, you have the floor. Madame, go ahead. Go ahead, please, Madame, go ahead. Go ahead.
Merci. Moi, c'est Odette Kamanzi des questions internationales. Alors, pour notre panel aujourd'hui, je remercie d'abord les coordinateurs, les organisateurs, les organisatrices, et aussi les modérateurs et puis les panélistes, et tout l'ensemble ici dans la salle. Alors, pour l'éducation de la fille, moi je peux dire une chose. En fait, en sensibilisant les filles, en sensibilisant les parents, il faut aussi sensibiliser les filles en question. Parce qu'il y a les coutumes, il y a la tradition qui est ancrée dans leur cœur, dans leur façon de faire. Parce que les grands-parents, les parents, ils ont fait ceci et cela. Aujourd'hui, c'est le temps de changer. De changer parce que ce soit l'éducation pour la fille et pour les garçons, c'est la même chose. Souvent, on s'est dit que la fille va être à la maison pour les travaux ménagers, machin, mais on ne se rend pas aussi compte que nous ne rendons pas aussi facile la vie des jeunes garçons. Parce que si c'est l'éducation qui va aller trop loin, là je vais faire une anecdote un peu, des jeunes garçons qui viennent à l'université au Canada par exemple, qui ne savent même pas faire l'omelette. Parce qu'à la maison, c'est les mamans qui font la cuisine, c'est les soeurs qui font la cuisine, c'est les tantes, mais le garçon n'a jamais été dans la cuisine. Alors on ne rend pas vraiment service aux jeunes garçons à l'avenir. Ça c'est un. Et puis de deux, ici on s'est dit, qu'est-ce qu'on peut donner comme recommandation au gouvernement? Est-ce que ça ne serait pas une question un peu renversée? Qu'est-ce que nous, les autres éducateurs et éducatrices, on peut faire pour notre gouvernement? Parce qu'on attend toujours que le gouvernement fasse ceci et cela, mais on ne se demande pas du tout ce qu'on peut faire. Et pourtant, l'argent que le gouvernement donne, que ce soit pour faciliter les retours à l'école des jeunes filles, que ce soit faciliter les centres techniques professionnels pour les jeunes filles, c'est l'argent des contribuables, c'est l'argent de nous-mêmes. Donc, aujourd'hui, je voulais dire que c'est le temps même que nous autres, on se pose aussi la question avant de poser la question au gouvernement. C'est bien que le gouvernement va mettre parce que c'est aussi dans leur devoir de le faire. Mais je crois que c'est aussi un devoir de monsieur et madame tout le monde. Je vous remercie.
Merci beaucoup, madame. Madame Odette. Non, je pense que nous allons prendre la dernière question. C'est plus une question, monsieur, n'est-ce pas? Ou une contribution? Ok, allez-y.
Okay, good morning everyone. I'm Cho Karuli from Lead Girl Africa, and I equally double as software developer for Mi Academy, an educative startup. So thank you for your brilliant presentations. My contribution or my suggestion comes mainly from the best practices you both gave, which was, I mean, there are many of them, but my question was more the role of mobile education in trying to tackle the various shortcomings you mentioned. We are all aware that mobile phones are very cheap and they are widely available. Again, some of the contributions you gave us to government policies, we all know it could take very long to be implemented. But with the tool like the mobile phone, we really think in no time, in the same academic year, such policies will actually reach the right people and actually have content reaching girls rather than boys, and the things that concern just the girls. So that was simply our contribution. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup. Je pense que pour ne pas oublier les deux questions qui ont été posées tout à l'heure, je vais passer la parole aux panélistes. La première question a été posée par Lorraine qui dit pourquoi est-ce qu'elle a l'impression que les jeunes filles ont plus tendance à avoir accès aux filières littéraires. Est-ce que ce n'est pas naturel? Elle a présenté un cas tout à l'heure. Et il y a également notre frère journaliste qui a posé la question savoir si les garçons sont-ils favorisés par rapport aux filles. C'est bien ça? Je ne sais pas si j'ai bien pris la question. Mais nos paniers certainement ont recueilli les questions également. Please, Madame Troisième Constantine.
Yeah, I think the first question was girls choosing nursing and related professions. Is this not because of their natural tendency, that they are nurturing? I think I would say yes, that would be one of the reasons, and we all know in the advent of COVID-19, women have been on the front line. The world sings praises to women. Women who are caregivers, the nurses, everywhere they have been at the front line because of that nurturing, as you rightly put it. they know how to treat the patient, they know how to comfort them. That is maybe one of the reasons. But the other reason will also be that the lack of orientation. When you go elsewhere, you see they have open days, orientation, they orient people, they bring the industry, professionals to tell people that if you want to become this is the subject that you have to choose. If you want to become this, I don't know if we have started having orientation days in Cameroon. And how often? How often? And again, people end up taking what is at their disposal. We know we are still to have schools proximate to, we are still to take schools to the doorsteps of people who are in need of education in Cameroon. Cameroon has 316 municipal councils. And the list of those municipal councils has at least 10 villages. And the list of every village has at least 10 quarters. That should be approximately the number of schools that should exist in this country to guarantee education for us. Mike, is it okay? Okay. So those are some of the reasons. And then the journalist asked a question which I will classify it as child labor. Child labor, the boys and the girls that you see on the street. International Labour Organization calls that child labor, whether it affects only boys and girls. It does not affect only boys and girls, it has consequences on both boys and girls, but most often the girl who goes to the street to sell, like the brother, she ends up most often with a pregnancy. It is also, today we also see more and more boys who end up also being sodomized. Society is becoming something that no one can understand. But we know that the girl child is more vulnerable on the street than the boy child. And one of the barriers which we didn't mention or we didn't really call it by its name is this child labor. It's one of the things that keeps the girl child out of school. And he also mentioned about succession and that those things are no longer taken. Well, that's why we said there is the law and there is the practice and the cultural barriers. Because since that day that the Supreme Court of Cameroon, in the case of Mancho Florence and her brothers, decided that boys and girls have equal rights to succeed and inherit their parents, the law of succession or inheritance is guaranteed for both boys and girls. But when my father died in 2004, he would have loved me to be the successor, but because I'm a girl child and because it belongs to the village secret society, women don't go to the village secret society, that cultural barrier eliminated me. So the cultural barriers are still there, the laws are there, but the cultural barriers are still there. Okay. I don't know if I answered Madam,
I don't know if you have something to add or not. I want to speak about advice for families. Madame Odette a parlé du conseil des familles pratiquement. Comment est-ce que le conseil de famille devrait se faire? Ça, c'est une chose. Et également, elle a parlé d'apporter notre contribution au gouvernement. Je pourrais répondre directement à cela pour dire qu'un think tank comme celui-ci fait déjà des discussions pareilles. Nous allons former des recommandations et porter à l'attention du gouvernement. À eux de choisir ce qui les convient ou pas. Donc c'est déjà ce que nous pouvons faire à notre niveau et sensibiliser également les associations féminines. Parce que quand nous faisons des recommandations, ce n'est pas seulement à l'endroit du gouvernement, c'est à l'endroit des associations des femmes, c'est à l'endroit du secteur privé, c'est à l'endroit de la société civile. Please, Madame Etonde, what advice for family? Quels sont les conseils que les familles devraient mettre sur pied exactement, pratiquement, pour faciliter l'accès des jeunes filles à l'éducation? Parce que c'est revenu 2 fois tout à l'heure.
So apart from encouraging them to go to school, like paying their tuition, it's also encouraging. Some girls are weak in studies. Doesn't mean that they are better off out of school. And also some parents use a lot of negativity on the children. We have parents when the child fails exam like twice, girl child fails exam like twice, they send you straight to marriage, or they send you to learn tailoring or something income generating. You know, you're better off learning that than being in school. So we have to learn how, we have to encourage parents. We have to encourage families to keep pushing girls. And when a child is in school, also pay attention to what are some of the subjects they are strong in and what are some of the subjects they are weak at. Subjects which they are weak at, you encourage them you look at their loopholes and see how you can both. Subjects which they are strong in, you can help them to career orientate them how to grow a career through that line. So it's that, and also it's one thing to encourage families to encourage children to go to school. Is another thing for the individual, because when the girl child gets to a certain age, she has to make decision. You can go to a boarding school and pay the tuition, go to a school and pay the tuition. They will have to decide if they are either there or they're in the clubs, or they're either there or hanging out in the street. But we also have to, we as parents also have to deviate from the kind of way we structure advice that we give our daughters, to make them see that the education is not just me fulfilling my right as a parent, my duty as a parent, but that how it's going to affect you when you grow up. So while you skip classes and you're in the bar drinking, know that 2, 3 years or 5 years from there, you have to bear the consequences. And if that's the decision that you want for yourself.
Okay, thank you so much. D'autres questions? Oui, il y a la dame, il y a le monsieur en haut. Prenons une question en haut. Il y a madame en bas. Donc, nous prenons 2 questions en haut et une question en bas, s'il vous plaît.
Bonjour à tous. Moi, c'est le docteur Annie de l'AJTD. C'était pour la naissance de Mme Etonde. Parlant de la politique familiale, comment est-ce que nos familles devraient encourager nos sœurs à aller à l'école. Il y a un aspect de la société que nous ouvrons beaucoup plus. Je vais faire un peu une petite histoire. Il y a encore 10 ans, 20 ans, les footballeurs au Cameroun, quand un enfant prenait le chemin du football, on disait que lui s'était garé. Mais aujourd'hui, vous voyez le chef d'État lui-même, beaucoup de personnes applaudissent quand certaines personnes sont sur le stade. Alors je pense qu'on devrait s'inspirer un peu de ce modèle. Nous avons des femmes, il y a, pour ceux qui suivent la CATV, depuis peut-être un mois pratiquement, il y a une femme qui est ingénieure, peut-être que ça doit là. Oui. Et elle s'est inspirée. C'est son papa. Quand elle raconte l'histoire, comme on dit, les familles n'encouragent pas. Mais son papa, comme son tuteur l'avait dit, quand il faisait le bac, que si tu fais le bac cette année, ça ne va pas te servir. Je préfère que tu rates le bac pour être mieux préparé l'année prochaine. Et aujourd'hui, elle est ingénieure. Alors, on doit vous présenter les modèles des femmes qui ont réussi. Ça doit inspirer nos sœurs et nos enfants. Si peut-être dans la politique camerounaise, on avait nommé peut-être une femme ingénieure en aéronautique, ingénieure peut-être ici, ingénieure ici, ça devait inspirer nos sœurs à peut-être embrasser ces métiers. Si peut-être dans un lycée, le professeur lui-même, ou bien le professeur était mathématicien, parce qu'on raconte toujours que les mathématiciens camerounaises étaient malades. Mais depuis cette année, depuis 7 ans-là, combien de femmes on a présenté comme les femmes qui ont réussi dans ce domaine? Nous connaissons comment les femmes ingénieures au Cameroun en mathématiques. Peut-être qu'elles sont là, on ne les présente pas. Alors elle devait être des modèles. Moi je connais une femme qui s'est inspirée de... parce qu'elle est psychologue, mais sa petite soeur est docteur. Elle a dit que son papa était docteur, elle a voulu faire comme son papa. Aujourd'hui, tous ses enfants sont des docteurs. Docteurs en médecine, il faut préciser.
D'accord. Merci beaucoup. Merci beaucoup, monsieur, pour votre contribution. Nous allons, madame, c'est une question.
No, it's a contribution.
Please, can we have a question? Please, we will give you the floor after, madam. Okay, please, Cherry, you can give the floor to the mic to madam so that you can. Yes.
Hello, good morning. Thank you for giving me the floor. Sorry for coming late. I want to commend the Foretia Foundation for this series of discussions that are, I think, monthly. It's the first time I'm attending, but the members of the Association of Women, Cameroon Association of Women in Media, have been taking part here, and we try to report to give greater visibility to those who are not invited and who might not have the opportunity to come here. I have gathered quite a few things, but I will just react firstly to what the gentleman said in relation to regretting the fact that maybe the women who are models in the STEM fields are not known. I want to say that while not taking sides with government, but I know the Ministry of Men's Empowerment and the Family produces an annual book. They say it's a referral pathway or parcours or something. It's bilingual. And every year they go to every field in every ministry and try to update on the categories of women who are moving up in different fields. You can find this document. It's not being sold, but it is in the Ministry of Women's Empowerment and Family, and you can find them in the regional and divisional delegations. Also, since I have the microphone, maybe I just make my request in relation to what one of the panelists, Madame Wazei Nicolin, said about equal pay, disparities in wages in Cameroon, and I would like her, who is a jurist, to help us with the article in the Constitution or from Parliament that allows whether they are private or enterprises to continue discriminating women, because I know that in the public sector and in the international labor code, there is supposed to be equal pay for equal educational certificates and competencies. So if you have the law, please kindly share with us and we will continue the advocacy. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, madam. Please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator, and to all the panelists. Thank you for the wonderful discussion we've had. Good morning to everyone. I'm Fon Eleno. I'm Program Manager at Cameroon Agenda for Sustainable Development. I just wish to ask, my question is directed to Madame Wazi. In proposing recommendations to increase access to education for girls, she mentioned redesigning the curriculum to fit the needs of girls, as she stated that the needs of girls and boys are different. I just wish for her to throw more light on that point and maybe give an example. I'm particularly interested in this curriculum because in partnership with Deserve Cameroon, we have been working on a comprehensive sexuality education manual for Cameroon secondary school. So I'm really interested in this aspect of the curriculum for the girls. Thank you very much.
Thank you, madam. Please, one more question upstairs before Madame Free. Yes, madame, can go ahead, please.
Oui, merci, monsieur le modérateur. Bonjour à tout le monde. Je suis Aline Kana Fumekon de l'association Jeunesse Verte. Je vais directement à la question. Déjà, je m'excuse du retard, peut-être c'est pourquoi je vais poser la question. C'est juste de savoir la stratégie, l'approche de travail de la Fondation. Parce que depuis, on parle des recommandations à l'endroit du gouvernement. Mais je pense qu'il y a aussi, dans tout ce qui a été dit, il y a une approche aussi basée sur les familles. Donc, je voudrais savoir quelles sont vos approches de travail pour impacter ou bien pour avoir un impact et un résultat concret. Et comment est-ce que vous travaillez avec les organisations pour relayer cette problématique? Merci.
Merci, madame. I will give my mic to Madame Free. Nous avons deux questions là-haut. Une question en bas.
Thank you, Dr. Kwam. I just wanted to add my voice to the issue of why young girls have a tendency of moving towards subjects like history, literature, and not the STEM, which is considered a more demanding courses or a career path to take. And I want to bring us back to the basic unit of the society, which is the family. We need to reconsider our gender roles, not just for our young boys and girls at home, but for ourselves as parents, because the non-verbal communication that we give in the household influences the way, the choices that our the girl child will make when they grow old. For example, if you are in a family where the husband and the wife have a job, and the husband comes home and picks up the magazine and is reading, and waits for the wife to come back and continue with household chores, we are equally telling the girl child that when you grow up, look for something easy because you have 100% work to do at home. And in addition to that, you have to go out and work, get a paid job. So that girl child in the mind will be looking at what is easier as a career path to take, in addition to the 100% household responsibility that I have. So as parents, we have that fundamental challenge to reverse or to mutualize the gender roles at home in order for our children to know that the girl child has an equal opportunity out as a boy child to face the challenges and choose the career path that they deserve. Thank you. That's what I want.
Thank you very much, Madam, for this wonderful contribution. I will give the floor to Madam Waze first to respond to. After I will, je vais apporter une réponse à Madame concernant.
Yeah, I have a few questions that were addressed to me directly. The one, Becky asked a question on the law on salary gap. I would say it is, what we are arguing here is the labor code is gender neutral. The labor code is gender blind. And we know that when they say it is gender blind, it ends up being gender discrimination. Discrimination because the employer pays according to his discretion. And that is why we say in the labor market, workers who are governed by the labor code, men and women, they perform the same work, but men are paid higher at the discretion of the employer. And the request now is for government to make that law, labor code, gender sensitive by expressly stating that where men and women are employed in the same profession and are delivering the same profession, they should be paid equal salary. That is where the advocacy roadmap should be, or the advocacy point should be. One, the labor code should be gender sensitive. I think I answered that question, Becky. It's not like there is any law in the labor code that says men work more than, men should be paid more than women. Rather, the labor code is silent on the issue of equal payment, and because it is silent on that, employers use their discretion to pay men more than women. That is how I should put it. The different needs for girls in curriculum. I think the different needs should be defined by the government, what is available. Like Madame just said, why do women run to do teaching work, for instance? Because it is one of the easiest things for a woman to do and juggle with unpaid housework. A woman knows that when she goes to school by 2:30, she'll come home and she'll be able to cook food for Oga. When Oga is coming back in the evening, there will be food on the table before she's transformed into a punching bag. That is why women go to prefer those courses, for instance. So orientation of a school curriculum, for instance, could be making provision for payment for unpaid, for what we know today as unpaid work. Yes. Am I understood? That could be a type of orientation of the curriculum that takes into consideration the needs of the women. That women have some extra allowance no matter what profession they are practicing, because they also take care of unpaid work back at home, for instance. So it will be a matter of fact and depending on the circumstances surrounding the situation that we want to address.
Thank you so much, Madam Wazi. I don't know if Madam Letone has something to add about this curriculum.
Madam Wazi pretty much said what I also wanted to add on. Madam Emanuela, if I'm not mistaken, who from Cameroon, who talked about them already trying to develop a manual for secondary school. Those are some of the things that can also be incorporated. Stuff on sexual reproductive health. We also have stuff on curriculums also should incorporate STEM. Not that we have to wait them to finish the first cycle or second cycle, then they have to start choosing if that's where on to go for science or not. But if we can incorporate basics in STEM courses from the first cycle of education, that will help so much.
D'accord, je pense qu'il ne faut pas, les hommes qui sont dans la salle ne devront pas perdre de vue que nous devons être des modèles pour nos enfants, parce que quand nous rentrons du travail, aidons-les à nous servir à manger, la jeune fille qui verra cela n'aura pas peur demain d'avoir plus de travail, comme Madame la directrice l'a souligné. Madame a posé la question de savoir qu'est-ce que nous, en tant que fondation, nous faisons pratiquement pour pouvoir résoudre ces problèmes que nous sommes en train de soulever. Je vais passer la parole à Madame Free Assanka, qui est la CEO de la fondation, pour qu'elle dise exactement ce que nous faisons.
Thank you for that question. I will just summarize what we do at the foundation and how we approach the work we do. At the foundation, we have a think tank, the CAFO Policy Institute. What we do is that we try to be the bridge between the government and the people, in the sense that there are certain policy recommendations that the government make or decisions that the government take that the people don't understand. So once that happens, we organize seminars like this one to explain some government decisions and things in a language that people can understand. On the other hand, we also do a lot of research, where once we have this research into current things that are happening in our society, like what we are doing today, we then come with policy recommendations. And these recommendations take the form of policy briefs that we write and publish on our website, and which we distribute also to competent authorities. And in all our events, we invite both the private sector and the public sector to form a common ground where we can discuss issues that are pending in our society and thus are call for concern for all and sundry. So that is what we do in a nutshell. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madame. Please, nous allons prendre une autre série de questions. Oui, je vois Madame a levé la main, je vois la dame, je vois le monsieur. Il faut toujours un monsieur parce que c'est important. Il faut toujours... je pense, ce sont des questions beaucoup plus, n'est-ce pas? Oui, le micro est de quel côté?
Ok, merci. Bonjour à tout le monde. Mon nom c'est Véronique et Cindy de l'association des femmes des médias. En fait, ma question, c'est pas une question en fait, c'est une petite question et puis une contribution. Bon, ce que je voudrais poser comme question, c'est que comment est-ce que les organisateurs font pour vulgariser les recommandations prises après chaque atelier, par exemple. Parce que je me dis, quand vous donnez des recommandations et même vous proposez des choses au gouvernement, ça prend un peu de temps. Or, en tant que les médias sont là pour relayer. Actuellement, nous sommes dans un atelier et puis vous avez appelé les médias, mais quand ça passe à la télé et à la radio, c'est fugace. Parce que c'est à peine 1 minute ou 2 minutes qu'on fait passer ça. Alors je me dis, si par exemple, vous organisez de telle manière qu'il y ait des mini-programmes, radio ou télévision, je pense que l'impact peut être assez considérable. Parce que je me dis, ici par exemple, dans notre pays, si le football a pris cette ampleur, c'est parce que régulièrement, dans les radios, les télévisions, il y a des émissions. Je ne sais pas s'il y a une seule radio dans notre pays qui n'a pas une émission pour le sport. Donc je me dis, ça devrait être la même chose pour la sensibilisation des filles à prendre des filières scientifiques. Donc je me dis, pour moi c'est une proposition.
Merci beaucoup, madame. Nous allons apporter une réponse également tout à l'heure. Les questions aux panélistes et après, docteur Odette Kibou va apporter une réponse parce qu'elle est la coordinatrice du CAFO Policy Institute. Madame la directrice a parlé tout à l'heure du CAFO Policy Institute. Elle va vous dire ce que nous faisons pour répandre, pour vulgariser les recommandations que nous proposons aux acteurs. Les questions aux panélistes, s'il vous plaît.
Bonjour à tout le monde. Moi, je suis
aussi représentant l'association là à Cameroun. J'ai retenu tout à l'heure que l'une des barrières à l'éducation, à la rétention de la jeune fille à l'école est les grossesses. Vous avez dit tantôt qu'il est important, après l'accouchement, que le parent assiste cet enfant à revenir à l'école. Mais je voudrais demander, quelle action concrètement, à part le parent, est-ce qu'on pourrait mettre en place pour que cette jeune fille-là retourne à l'école? On sait tous qu'il faudrait par exemple 3 ans avant que le petit bébé commence à rester tout seul. Pendant ces 3 ans-là, qu'est-ce qu'on pourrait faire pour que la fille retourne à l'école plus tôt?
D'accord, merci beaucoup madame, c'est très pertinent. Il y a le monsieur devant, juste devant.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Indon Eric from Girls Corner International and the Global Schools Program at SDSC. Permit me, I have a chain of questions.
Please just summarize.
Yeah, also. Regrettably, we don't have a member from the government to sit in the panelists to respond to some of the gaps and do clarification. Now, we have talked about access to education. I think it goes beyond getting girls into school, like Madame Wazi said about retention. So I believe it requires that, ensure that girls learn and they feel safe at school. Now, my question is, what disposition has the government made to ensure that girls feel safe at school? A few weeks back, we heard about principals raising issue of teacher-student relationships. And most of the victims are young girls who get pregnant and their education is stopped at one moment. So what is the government doing, or what should the government do to address issues of this nature? Secondly, we construct schools and we talk about quality education. It doesn't just end at curriculum, but facilities that can facilitate or accommodate girls' issues like menstruation, like Madam Eton has said. So what facilities has the government put in place to accommodate girls and to ensure that they don't stop school during the menstrual period? And lastly, we have talked about measures to put in place. Now, what measures have been put in place to ensure that the boys in school are educated to be accommodating and welcoming to girls during the menstrual period at school? And lastly, just a contribution. Just a contribution to what Madame Etonde said about sensitization. I think the idea about sensitization needs to be reoriented towards men. They are the ones that take the decision. I find most of the sensitization campaign grouping women and girls. I think they need to reorient it to men.
Thank you so much. S'il vous plaît, une question. Je vais prendre la dernière question chez madame et les panélistes vont reprendre la parole. Please. S'il vous plaît, madame, soyez brève, s'il vous plaît.
Thank you for this opportunity. My name is Moabufo Francoise. I'm the founder of a civil society organization, women-based and community-oriented. It was quite a rich exchange with the panelists this morning, and I just want to bring 1 or 2 questions. We talk about our female being about 50% of the population, and we also spoke about more than about 50 live in rural areas. And we are here today. When I look at the hall, I barely see females that are represented here. So how do you ensure that all what we are discussing here is implemented in the community where most of us live? And secondly, I realize that is also, I want to put a look at this leadership aspect. It's true that women are not more in leadership, but the few that are there, how do they bring back development in their community? I will just bring a simple, an experience I learned in India. in their community, everything is decentralized and well structured in such a way that you know how many poor families are in that community. And this year, who are we assisting? In which school are we sending that person? So if you come to their board, it is well written somewhere. They will tell you this community have 1,000 people. They are 10 very poor, they are 20 poor, everything, and then they know how to categorize what do they mean by poor,
yes,
in such a way that assistance is not hidden, it is visible, and they can now say, we sent 2 students to medical school last year, or in 2 years' time, 2 medical students will be coming out, they are from this family, we've done this to these people, we've done this and that. So we don't really program, we don't really follow up also some of the things we do, and we are not well coordinated. Let me say, there are many things I want to say, but let me just say this one. We've been talking about education, formal education. If we go to the informal sector, we said here that they need to be trained. Another thing I will say, not just training, even those that go to school, those that are educated here, they always go for capacity building. And we've realized that most of the time, in our organization, we give women money for table business, but we realize that most of those women don't excel with that money. And what did we do since last year? There's an organization here that trained women on bookkeeping, how to really make sure they are making profit in the business they are engaged in. And it will surprise you that they accompany these women for 1 year. They don't only train, but they accompany these women for 1 year. Yes. And so they come regularly and see what did you buy this plantain, how much did you buy it, how much did you think you will sell it, where did you buy it from. They really accompany these women, but such an information is not found everywhere. I don't know, you are looking for the microphone, there are just so many things I want to say.
Thank you very much, madame. Je pense que nous allons commencer par madame Etonde en répondant à la question posée par madame Cindy. Qu'est-ce qu'il faut faire pour que les jeunes filles qui malheureusement sont tombées enceintes puissent retourner le plus rapidement à l'école? Et si elles doivent faire 3 ans à la maison, le temps que leur enfant mange, qu'est-ce qu'on devra faire? Qu'est-ce que les acteurs, je préfère parler des acteurs, pas du gouvernement, parce que ce sont les acteurs, tous les acteurs confondus, devraient faire pendant ces 3 années de break-là? Il y a d'autres questions qui ont été posées, vous pouvez répondre selon votre convenance.
Ok, merci. Bon, l'une des choses que je peux conseiller, c'est avoir une crèche de communauté, parce qu'il y a des crèches, mais c'est commercial. Et puis payer pour que tu dois y avoir de l'argent pour payer pour avoir ton enfant dans une crèche. Mais si les communautés ont des crèches qui peuvent aider les mères célibataires, garder les enfants là, ils peuvent aller à l'école, ça va les aider. Et si nous avons aussi des établissements de adult literacy, qui est ciblé à des heures que des mères peuvent être, même si c'est 2 heures par jour, même si c'est 3 jours par semaine ou 2 heures par jour, ils peuvent rester en contact avec les éducations.
Mais qu'est-ce que vous faites? Je veux rebondir sur la question de madame. Qu'est-ce que vous faites en tant qu'association pour implémenter tout ce que nous avons dit? C'est parce que vous êtes des ambassadrices en fait.
Bon, apparemment, dans notre association, cette année, nous lançons le Adult Literacy. Le Adult Literacy Center pour les mères célibataires et les disadvantaged young girls. Les filles qui sont sorties de l'école, ça fait des années. Et apparemment, nous sommes dans le terrain pour cibler, pour identifier ces filles, les challenges, les obstacles, pourquoi ils ne sont pas rentrés là, on peut mieux connaître. Et nous avons déjà un curriculum que nous avons établi. Nous avons établi comment les accompagner. Là, ils peuvent rentrer à l'école.
Okay, merci beaucoup. Madame Oisé, what measure can the government put in place to accommodate girls at school? Yes. You can start with this question and
yeah, Madame Etonde mentioned already of community care centers, which is what actually happens in many places, and we all come from municipalities here. With the decentralization, these are the things we should be able to go and tell our municipal councillors, that we need community care centers, that are free for the community, managed by the community, so that they can help the girl child go back to school even when she has a child. Adult education to evening school should also be encouraged, because we all live in African societies. It will always be that possibility for her to have the family to take care of the children in the evening, and she goes to school from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. Those are some of the things that we should do. Then, can I just brush on the questions? Okay, like what dispositions for girls to stay in school amidst harassment and those. I think it's because of the impunity of the perpetrator that the girl child does not go to school, that the girl child does not go back to school after those that harassment and the impunity. But I think we should also be looking into the penal code, especially the 2016 revised edition, that makes provisions for punishment on issues like rape. They have amplified the scope of, they have amplified the scope of rape, for instance. There are issues of the minor, for instance. When the teacher-student relationship, that's actually what is happening, which is unfortunately, the penal code does not make a teacher-student relationship an aggravating circumstance. Because the relationship that exists between the teacher and the student is a fiduciary relationship. It's a relationship of trust. The teacher is supposed to be a caretaker, a custodian. So when the teacher is the first person to violate that child, the difference between the teacher and the parent is not too wide, right? Out of house, the parents are supposed to be, the teachers are supposed to be the parent. So the penal code should be implemented by punishing those teachers who violate the rights of those children that they're supposed to protect. And the last, I think the second to the last question, what do boys do to maintain girls in school during their menstrual period? During the 16 days activism against gender-based violence, for instance, my organization used to go down to schools. When we go down to school, we go down with sanitary towels. And we'll go with these pads. We actually give boys to give girls. Consider those girls during their menstruation as your sister back at home, your mother menstruates, your future wife will menstruate, your daughter will menstruate. Start learning from your classmate how to accommodate a woman during her menstrual period, so that will be easy for you to accommodate your wife and your daughter. And we also encourage parents, when we go down to communities, a women-led organization or community organization, we encourage parents to have family dialogues. That is the thing that is missing in our community. Menstruation remains a taboo subject. Sexual education remains a taboo subject between children and parents. When you don't give sexual education to your child, they will learn from their friends, or they will learn from Big Brother, the University of WhatsApp, the University of social media. And when they go to learn it there, we know that they don't learn the right things. Because I want to believe that these children who go to school, they take drugs, they go and organize sex parties. If you give your child moral education back at home, if we encourage these family dialogues, your child will know where she's coming from, she'll know why she's going to school, she should know her limits, and she should know when to come back from her house intact. Those are some of the things that we need to lay emphasis on. And the last question was, how do we ensure the conversation here is taken to the grassroots community?
Nous allons prendre une dernière vague de questions. S'il vous plaît, soyez bref. Soyez bref au maximum. Une dernière vague de questions. Non, une dernière vague de questions, oui, madame, derrière. Soyez bref au maximum pour que nos panélistes puissent apporter des éléments de réponse exacts. S'il vous plaît, ceux qui ont des questions, 3 dernières questions, vous pouvez lever juste la main. Ok, allez-y, madame.
All right, go on to my question has been pretty much answered with my question has been pretty much answered, but the only reason we got as to why girls tend to follow arts field in education as opposed to the science and technical field. besides our place in society, that was the only answer you gave, rather. You mentioned the fact that, okay, we have to go back home, like we're conscious of the fact that when we grow up, we'll have to juggle between school and between work and our families, our marriages, but what other reasons are there besides that? We're in the 21st century, I'll use myself as an example. Those reasons are pretty much not our reasons right now. I'm talking as a young girl. I followed the arts field not because I knew sometime I'll be married and I have to go to work and come back and cook. It was the least of my worries. I don't know if you're getting it. So I want to find another reason as to why we are prompted to follow the arts field as opposed to the science field. That way I could talk to my friends and we know how to prep our younger ones to.
Okay, thank you. Last question, please.
Ma question s'adresse à qui veut la prendre. Et j'aimerais savoir, je pense qu'il y a un point important qui, ma foi, est lié à l'éducation, c'est la pauvreté. Vous avez évoqué, Madame Etonde a évoqué le cas des mariages forcés, par exemple. Les parents qui envoient leurs filles en mariage très rapidement, généralement, c'est quand ils sont pauvres, ils sont dans une certaine précarité, c'est plus pour un comble de leurs moyens. Mais j'aimerais savoir, est-ce que c'est l'éducation qui peut permettre d'éradiquer la pauvreté, ou alors c'est la pauvreté qui peut, c'est éradiquer la pauvreté qui peut permettre, faciliter l'accès à l'éducation.
Merci beaucoup, madame. Madame you can take the first question, and Madame Etonde the last question. The second question. Please.
To the lady, I think that was one of the reasons. You said one of the reasons, and I was actually reacting to what Madame CEO said. But before that, we had mentioned reasons why girls don't choose the STEM subjects, among other things. We had talked about orientation, like they don't have open days that models are brought to tell, or the industry is brought to tell students that this is what you want, this is the courses that you should do if you want to become this or that. And again, there is fulfillment. We are not saying that every woman should go for STEM subjects. Whatever you do, you should also think about your fulfillment. There are some teachers, some women who like to be teachers, who like to be literature teachers, who like to be food and nutrition teachers. We are not saying that those subjects should be eliminated from the school curriculum. But we are just mentioning some of the obstacles. And of course, we can never argue sufficiently that most often because of the social construct and the gender stereotypes. A girl who is overeducated will not get married. A girl who is overeducated, all those things that they used to brainwash the child, the girl child, and then maybe I got married before I continued my education. Because all my parents wanted from me was to get married and to be responsible. So I got married before I continued my education. I am fortunate that I was married to a man who is my support system, who encouraged me to go back to school, but put 100 women, 75 will not have the opportunity that I had because of what the society will expectations of the society from the woman. So I think the reasons are many, they vary, and they are a matter of fact, and will depend on the circumstances surrounding each case. It's not like a one-size-fits-all reasons for why we cannot use a broad brush to say these are the reasons why women don't choose science subject.
Thank you, Madame Etonde.
Bon, merci pour votre question. Bon, nous avons parlé de la pauvreté comme l'une des causes pour laquelle les filles sont empêchées, et nous allons parler du mariage forcé. Les mariages forcés sont des mariages qui sont plus pratiques dans certaines régions, parce que ce n'est pas de leur tradition. Nous avons aussi les mariages volontaires. Apparemment, on peut dire dans notre communauté que dans notre quartier, nous allons voir plusieurs filles qui ont laissé de l'école, qui sont dans le concubinage avec des hommes qui ne sont pas mariés à eux, ils ont arrêté de l'école. Mais il y a aussi le fait qu'il y a une mentalité quand une fille part à l'école, elle a la licence, elle a la maîtrise, elle a le doctorat, la plupart des fois on demande et puis quoi? Demain elle va se marier. Et soit elle a un homme qui peut l'encourager, si le Seigneur l'a béni avec un homme qui peut l'encourager pour partir plus en plus en école, ou elle a un homme, que le Seigneur l'a béni avec un homme qui peut l'encourager de travailler. Mais nous avons plusieurs filles aussi qui partent à l'école et quand ils finissent, ils attendent le mariage. Si le travail ne vient pas l'un de l'autre, doit venir le mariage. Mais quand ils sont éduqués et on les sensitise, j'ai essayé de traduire, qu'on les montre comment ils peuvent utiliser leur éducation. Soit c'est au niveau du bac, soit c'est au niveau de la licence, le master et le doctorat. Comment est-ce qu'ils peuvent utiliser ces compétences pour sortir de la pauvreté? Là, c'est différent. Là, nous pouvons parler de l'autonomisation d'une femme financièrement et elle sait qu'elle est un leader de soi-même avant même sa communauté.
Thank you very much, Madame Etonde. Madame, Monsieur, merci beaucoup, chers panélistes. Madame, thank you so much to be here today. It was a great pleasure to discuss with you. Thank you so much, Madame Etonde. Madame, merci beaucoup d'avoir pris part à cette discussion. Nous sommes très honorés de vous compter parmi nous aujourd'hui. Nous allons consigner toutes ces recommandations dans un policy brief pour que ce soit facilement lu par nos dirigeants et également partager cela avec vous, partager le rapport avec vous. Merci beaucoup d'avoir été là. Le prochain panel sera certainement en ligne et nous allons tous vous convier. Pourquoi? Parce que nous sommes à l'ère du Covid. Il faut être ensemble, mais de temps en temps, il faut qu'on essaie de toucher les technologies de l'information et de la communication. Merci infiniment d'avoir été là ce matin. À très vite. Je passe la parole rapidement à la communicatrice pour qu'elle puisse continuer avec le programme.